This week, we finish up reading 1st and 2nd Corinthians, which often feels like it's just Paul constantly saying, don't do this, this is wrong, and that's kind of brutal. And we get into the book of Galatians. Now, Galatians, to be honest, is one of my favorite books in the New Testament. And that's kind of weird because I say that about most of the books of the New Testament. But Galatians is really cool to me because it's written to a very unique group of people. The Galatians were the descendants of Celts from the area of what is today France and Belgium, who had come down and invaded what is today central Turkey. At the time it was Greek kingdoms, and they had taken over the area, and they still had a lot of vestiges of their Celtic religion. Now, we hear Gaul and Galatians, we don't hear Celt. But those are actually very closely related words, and the Galatians were Celtic. We don't know whether they still spoke Celtic languages, although there are some indications in historical documents that they did. But they do seem to have some Celtic behaviors. One of the behaviors in particular is the reverence of trees. They would have found this comforting in the Greek culture that the Greeks also revere trees. Celtic society and Germanic society tended to revere trees. If you know anything about Norse mythology, you know that there is this idea that there is this one big tree, that the whole world is connected by this one tree. Even if you saw only the Marvel Thor movies, you know that that's in Celtic religion or Norse religion. Well, they had a great reverence for trees. And so Paul actually leverages this when he quotes the law talking about Jesus and saying, cursed is he who hangs on a tree. Because he is making a point that Jesus is as much of an outsider to the religion of Judaism at the time. Not the Bible, not biblical religion, but that religion of Judaism that had developed beyond the Bible, that Jesus had was as much an outsider to that as the Galatians are an outsider to that. And so they're not called to that, they're called to Scripture. They're not called to observe Second Temple Judaism, they are called to observe faithfulness according to the Hebrew Scriptures. And there is a distinction to be made there because the Jews had come to Galatia and told these descendants of the Celts, part of the Roman Greek world, they had told them they had to become Jews in order to please God. And so as you read Galatians, which is not a long book, it's a pretty quick book to read, but again, a lot of arguments about those ideas.